Okay, here's another project for the 2019 4Runner. This is a TYGER brand, I guess, kind of bull guard, bull bumper for the front end. We're going to put this on. I got this off Amazon. It was 160 bucks. My wife really didn't want a winch bumper, and you know, winch bumper is definitely heavier, more weight. You have the winch, and that's more weight. You need to stiffen up the front end so it doesn't sag too much, and then it rides a little rougher. I don't know. If we do that later, I'll just sell this later. I'll just take this off and sell it later. But for right now, this will allow us maybe put on a couple lights and wire in a couple extra lights. And it'll look good. So it came with all the hardware. We're going to see how easy this goes on or how hard it goes on. The instructions are actually really well detailed and good pictures. So this should be a pretty easy installation, according to the directions. And it came with a warranty that you can fill out, and also a coupon that you can get to save more on future products you buy from them if you share pictures. It came in a good box it was well packaged, and it is kind of a cool, almost like bed liner looking texture. You know, not carbon fiber, but definitely not just plain flat black or gloss black. So it looks pretty cool. I'm excited. Okay, so in the instructions they're talking about mounting the frame brackets to these three right here. Okay, so in the instructions, they first talk about doing the driver's side, and we're going to mount the brackets that hold the bull bumper on. Okay, so there's 3 bolts you want to pull out. Now, what I didn't know is there's a set of 3 right here. There's also a set of 3 on the inside here, but they're actually talking about these 3 on the outside that you can easily access. So we're just going to pull these out. These are 14 millimeters. And, you know, they're kind of in there good, so I'm using a long arm 14 millimeter like this. And then a rubber mallet to loosen them. Just, it's not a spot you can actually get the... It's not a spot you can actually get your impact in. So here's where ratcheting wrenches just really pay off right here. Situations just like this. Okay, we're looking at the passenger side here, and you can see the well part of the bracket sticks to the outboard side. Now the screws, they don't look like they're hard to get to, but they're pretty hard to get a tool on. So this little ratcheting wrench from Harbor Freight, Pittsburgh, in a 14 millimeter really made it a lot easier. I could get a ratchet up there with a 14 millimeter socket shallow. It fit on it, but the teeth on this must be much coarser because I could barely get one click out of it, and it was just not going fast at all. There's a lot of teeth on this. Hear that? Versus that. So I was able to get a bigger throw, and it was more effective, the throw with this. And let's look over at the driver's side, same kind of thing. Sorry, the light's kind of poor, but I didn't take any of these outer shrouds off like they suggested, but that made it a little easier. Okay, it just took a few more minutes just to get those on both sides. Now, as far as the bull bar goes, these brackets, this is the passenger side, and you'll notice that this part is toward the inboard side. These are 12 millimeters, and they just thread right up. And again, on this driver's side over here, the bracket actually runs on the inboard side. Okay, so when you look at the bracket, this is the top of the bull bumper up here. This little part right here goes to the bottom. Okay, close enough. The directions are a little confusing because I'm not a mechanic, but I'm struggling with this a little bit. It says driver right tube mount bracket. There it says driver left tube bracket. So anyway, they are actually marked though. They do say P for passenger. There's a P. If you can't see that in the light, there's a P knocked into that. and there's a D knocked into this one right over here. And go ahead and take your license plate off, because you will be mounting your license plate to the bull guard. Okay, we're looking at the passenger side here, and this shelf that the bull bumper bracket sits on, so you mount that bracket to the bull bumper and then you slide it in right here and then put these cross bolts through. That can sit right here, so you really don't need two people to hold it up. It'll sit right there on it, so that's kind of nice. And of course, just like a lot of things, it says don't tighten any of the bolts down during assembly. Just get it all together and then square it up and then tighten everything down. So we're going to roll it outside and get that done. So bolted up but not tightened down. You can see it's leaning out. We're going to try to bring it up to where it's square like that, straight up and down, and bolt it down there. Might take a couple times to get it adjusted right, but okay, I wish I had known this before, but putting this ratcheting wrench up inside here made a world of difference. A lot more throw, goes a lot faster. You could probably get a socket in a little extension, or maybe no extension, depending on what's in the way there. So right now I'm just cranking on it with this shorter one. I'll try to get the longer one on and crank on it with the longer arm, see if I can get a little more torque on it. Okay, got one more pull there. One more little bit of a turn. Let's try for another one right here. Line is in the way, but okay. Feels pretty good. One more. Okay, good. Okay, on the passenger side here, we got all the bolts tightened down. Those 14mm bolts on the bracket. I also tightened down these bolts here. These are actually 13mm, not 12mm, like I said earlier, 13mm here. And this is 16 on the outside and 17mm nut on the other side. So we're going to make sure this is straight up and down here, and then we're going to crank those down, and that should be it. Then we'll get the license plate on. Okay, so it looks like the hardest decision, or the hardest thing about putting this bull bumper on is figuring out where to put the license plate. So they did send, you know, with their little hex screws for the license plate, they did send a little, as if you don't have enough of those laying around from all the different things you bought over the years. But that's fine. That's nice they sent the tool, so you don't have to go dig for one. But it's kind of a cool logo, and in Colorado, of course, we're required to have a plate on the front. So do we put it down here, you know, where it kind of sticks down? Now, we're not rock crawling with this, so, you know, approach angle doesn't matter too much. But then again, it could go right here in the middle, and it kind of covers up the logo. Of course, there it's covering up the name anyway, so it's kind of, oh well. And the other thing is, and I'm not sure about, is they sent this piece of rubber here, and it's lining the back of this. It's like sticking way over here. I'm not sure what its purpose is. It just comes right off. This doesn't touch anything, at least on this 4Runner. I thought maybe it'd bump up against the bumper, but there's no way it can. I have the bumper shoved back as far that way as it can go. You know, so it's going back that as far as I can get it that way. So I don't know what the deal is. Besides the bent license plate. So we put a few hundred miles on the 4Runner over the past weekend, and hasn't loosened up. It's been nice and tight. Still looks nice and sharp, clean. And but my wife took it through the car wash, and you can see she said it bent this out completely. She had to bend it back just to straighten it up. And so what I'm going to do, my plan was to run a zip tie around here, a big zip tie. I did that, and that held it. But then you have a big black zip tie running over it. So I thought what I'd do is just drill these out right here. I made a little Sharpie mark here, right through there with my silver Sharpie. And we'll center punch that. We'll drill those out with the appropriate size for the thread cert or whatever it's called, the threaded rivet, and we'll get that secured so that it won't get pulled down again. Here's what we're using. Fasten Pro 45-piece threaded insert riveter kit. So this is a cheap one from Harbor Freight. I mean, this is not a super duty quality one, and I know that. My buddy talked me into buying this just to get me started in it, because he has much better quality tools and as far as the rivet gun goes. But I'm going to try this out, see how this does for this project, and hopefully this will solve this for me. I've had this kit for a couple years and I've just been waiting to use it. Let's try it out. Okay, so just picked up a little piece of scrap. This is the biggest one. Looks like it fits okay in the hole. This is going to be a two-handed job, so I'm going to set it down here just to get it started. We'll tighten that down to get it back up there. We'll tighten it down a little bit more. Okay. Not getting a great big throw out of it, but it seems to be working. Should be able to unscrew this. Okay, good. Seems pretty solid. Okay, so I guess if you weren't going to use safety wire to hold the front of top of the license plate or a zip tie, you could, and you're not going to use thread certs or the threaded rivets like I'm going to use, you could drill a hole from here all the way through the back side and put a long bolt through and a nut on the back side. It's pretty thin. I don't think you could, I mean, you could tap it and you might be able to get a couple threads out, but I think it's stripped pretty easy, but you could try tapping it. Like these thread certs that they put in here, you can feel from the back, so if these ever loosen up you can grab them from the back. Obviously these are inside the tube, so you can't grab these from the back. So once the license plate's on and then the screw's on, I think if it does, if this does spin when I'm trying to take the bolt out, what I do is try to rock the bolt and jam this like down or up or to the side or something, and then see if I can use a electric impact to buzz it out. And maybe another option is to try to stake these into this metal here. I don't know. You guys got any ideas? Let me know how you keep these thread certs in place. So again, we'll just tighten these till they stop. Right there. No tighter. Good. Now, we're going to be walking around the vehicle. These bolts are that long, so, you know, they're over an inch. So, you know, if they start backing out, I'm going to notice. We're going to notice it. But let's just see here. Okay. That didn't seem to be too much. It sure backed off. I'm using a lock washer underneath here, too. right there. Okay. Problem solved. I've got 2 different screws here. I could go to the hardware store and get some of these that are 1/4 20 threads, but hopefully I won't be changing this license plate ever. And my wife just said I have to paint these black. One last thing about this, of course I pulled this piece off, right? So I pulled it off. You got to make sure that this is tight on this. So you have to hold this part, and then this actually has a little wrench here that will fit, there's the wrench, that will fit this right here. And make sure this is nice and tight. So I actually clamped this in the vise and used pliers on this just to make sure it was nice and snug. But if you're trying to screw this in and out of your threaded rivet, and you can't seem to, every time you tighten this down, it feels like this is compressing down as you're trying to thread this into your rivet to get more tension on it, on the rivet. Make sure that's tight. Just pull it out and make sure that's tight, because the 2 times it happened to me while I was putting these on that it felt like it was, I wasn't able to get enough throw right here. I was just getting it to right there, and that's when it would tighten up, and then I'd just get a tiny, tiny bit of throw out of it, of actual bending the rivet. I took this out and tightened it by hand, and then that problem went away, but it showed up again right away. And then after I tightened it, it didn't show up at all after that. So make sure that's tight on that. That's the bottom line. Okay, so I'm just throwing the rivet tool in a baggie. I put all the other ones in little tiny bags here. I'm not going to label them because I'm just going to keep this inside this right here, inside the baggie as well. So I know this video is not about this tool, but it is kind of about this tool because this is what made this pretty easy.